If someone has her, just please bring her back. He stood there, in front of his home, asking for his family to return. The cameras were rolling, the neighborhood was watching, the country was listening. On the surface, it looked like a tragedy. A wife missing, 2 little girls gone without a trace. But stories like this don't begin in a single morning. They begin months earlier, sometimes years earlier. Behind perfect photos, behind smiling faces, behind a quiet suburban house in Colorado, something had already started to change. This is not just a story about a disappearance. It's a story about pressure, about secrets, about the slow collapse of a life that looked completely normal. To understand what happened that morning, we have to go back to the beginning. Chris Watts lived what many people would call an ordinary life. A 2-story house, a steady job, a wife, 2 little girls. His wife, Shanann Watts, was energetic, ambitious, constantly sharing moments of their life online. Birthdays, family dinners, pregnancy updates. From the outside, everything looked happy. Shanann was expecting their 3rd child, a baby boy. They had already chosen a name. Bella and Celeste, their daughters, were 4 and 3. Bright smiles, matching outfits, laughter echoing through the house. In photos, Chris looked quiet, reserved, a man who didn't say much. But nothing in those pictures suggested what was coming. Beneath the polished surface, there were pressures, financial strain, credit card debt, a previous bankruptcy. The image of stability required effort, constant effort. Shanann was strong-willed, organized, direct. Chris was different, quieter, avoidant, someone who struggled with confrontation. People who knew them later described something subtle, not violence, not rage, distance. And then, something changed. In the summer of 2018, Chris began spending more time away from home. He started working out, losing weight, changing routines. To some, it looked like self-improvement. To others, it looked like detachment. He had met someone, a new relationship, a different version of himself, a life that didn't include the one he already had. When Shanann traveled out of state for work, the distance between them grew wider. Messages became shorter, calls less frequent. Something was shifting, quietly, irreversibly. On August 12, 2018, Shanann returned home from a business trip. It was late. Just after 1:48 a.m., a neighbor's security camera captured her walking inside. That was the last confirmed sighting of her alive. The next morning, she didn't answer her phone. She missed a doctor's appointment. And for someone as active and responsive as Shanann, that was unusual. Her friend, Nicole Atkinson. Nicole had dropped Shanann off at home just hours earlier after her late-night flight. When her calls went unanswered, she drove to the house. Shanann's car was still in the garage. Her phone was inside. Her purse was untouched. And that's when Nicole did something that would change everything. She called the police. It was a welfare check. Routine. Standard. But from that moment, the story began to unravel. Officers arrived for what they believed was a routine welfare check. Nothing dramatic, no sirens, no urgency, just a missing woman and 2 children. Chris met them outside, calm, cooperative. He explained that Shanann had taken the girls to a friend's house. He wasn't sure where. He hadn't heard from her. But inside the house, something felt off. Nate Trinastich lived next door. He had a home security system facing the street, and he offered to show the footage to police. The video showed Chris Watts backing his truck into the driveway early that morning, something he rarely did. As the footage played, Nate later said Chris was acting strangely. He wouldn't stop talking. He kept explaining things that no one had asked about. Nate would later say, he wasn't acting right. Standing in that living room, watching his own truck on the screen, Chris looked uneasy. Later that afternoon, Chris Watts stood outside his home, speaking to local reporters, asking for his wife, Shanann Watts, and his daughters, Bella and Celeste, to come home.
I couldn't do it. I want everybody to just come home. Like, wherever they're at, come home.
To many viewers, he looked like a worried husband, but investigators were beginning to see inconsistencies. On August 15th, Chris agreed to take a polygraph test. He met with CBI agent Tammy Lee. After the test, Tammy Lee told him plainly, "You did not pass."
During the testing, and I think you already know that, he did not pass the polygraph test.
His breathing changed. His posture shifted.
Okay.
The calm facade began to crack.
I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise.
He insists he told the truth. The polygraph disagrees.
It's time. Just stop for a minute. Take it.
Detectives allowed Chris to speak privately with his father, Ronnie Watts. No cameras from the outside world, just a small interview room, and a father asking his son what really happened. At first, Chris hesitated. Then he told a partial version of the story.
She hurt him? Yeah.
He claimed that Shanann had hurt the girls and that he reacted in anger. It was not the full truth, but it was the first crack. After speaking with his father, Chris was brought back into the interrogation room. The story he had just told was now official. Detectives didn't argue. They didn't accuse. They asked for details. What time? Where were the girls? What exactly did you see? And that's when the cracks began to show. The timeline shifted. The sequence changed. The pauses grew longer. Because once you invent a version of events, you have to remember it. And under pressure, remembering a lie becomes difficult. Investigators continued calmly, methodically, and eventually the story changed again. This time he admitted that he had killed Shanann. No more redirection, no more deflection, just a confession. And once that barrier broke, the rest followed. After the confession, Chris agreed to take investigators to the site. It was a remote oil field operated by Anadarko Petroleum, a place he knew well, a place he had worked at before. The search team arrived later that day. In a shallow grave nearby, they found Shanann. She was still wearing the clothes she had come home in that night. The girls were not buried. Their bodies were recovered from separate oil storage tanks at the site. It was a location chosen for isolation, a place few people visited, a place he believed would buy him time. Just 2 days earlier, he stood in his driveway asking the world to help him find his family. Now, he was leading investigators to the place where he left them. The search was over. The story had collapsed. In November 2018, Chris Watts pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No trial, no dramatic defense, no public fight, just a quiet admission. This case wasn't driven by uncontrollable rage. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't madness. It was avoidance. Years of silence, suppressed resentment, fear of confrontation. Instead of saying, "I want out," he chose erasure. And that decision destroyed everything. The most disturbing part?